Dark Souls 3, 2 DLCs. Elden Ring, supposedly 1 DLC. Dark Souls 1, 1 DLC. Bloodborne, 1 DLC. Sekiro, 0 DLCs. Dark Souls 2, 3 DLCs? Can anyone tell me why the only game that was not directed by our Lord and Savior Swamp Master Miyazaki gets 3 pieces of DLC? Again, Dark Souls 2 proving me right. With the rule of thumb, more is more. Let's not make a top-notch single DLC like Bloodborne did. Instead, let's spit out 3 pieces of mediocre/okay content. Honestly, I don't even know where to start. As with everything in this game, there are ups and downs here. I'll try my best to describe my experience during the 20 or so hours I spent playing the extra content, giving you one positive thing followed by a negative thing. Expect the rants to be longer than the appraisals. Let's go! Firstly, the weapons they added are freaking awesome. Bewitched Alone Sword is as badass as its name. Look at the size of that thing. I swear I'm not trying to compensate for something. It is no secret I am a huge katana lover ever since I got Chikaged to the face. So getting a katana that allows you to stab yourself and deal extra damage is an insta win in my book. Look how cool this thing is. These guys can be melted in 2 hits and they are in New Game Plus cycle, by the way. That's a lot of damage. Other weapons feel unique one way or another, like the Ice Rapier that allows you to shoot projectiles with a charged attack button, which breaks the weapon faster, by the way, so be careful. This mace obliterates NPCs, but it is also poisonous. It had to be balanced somehow. The Fume Greatsword is just wow. Enemies make lines volunteering to be bonked on their faces by that one. Yorick's Spear has a very flashy R1, and I like to use it despite its R2 being the typical spin for the win that all spears have. All in all, solid arsenal additions. Boss fights were underwhelming. Looking past the good, aka Sir Alone, Sin, Fume Knight and Ivory King, which are freaking amazing, the other 5 fights are not entertaining for different reasons. Ilana is a whore that likes to summon things to fight for her, while she casts magic from afar, and every now and then she comes close for a few swings. By far, the most outrageous thing about her is how RNG-based the fight is, because there are 3 summons she can use: pigs, skeletons, and Velstad. Isn't that balanced? In my fight, she completely skipped the other 2 and summoned Velstad twice. In my case, it wasn't so difficult because I wasn't using a heavy build, quite the contrary, so I could poke Velstad a bit and have time to roll out of her magic's way. Good luck to greatsword heavy armor users, just pray to the RN gods that she summons little piggies instead. Smelter Demon is the same as in the base game, but blue. So yeah, I will avoid any comments on this one, otherwise local authorities would take me to jail. Grave Robber, Varg and Sarah are a joke. 3 random NPCs posing as a gank boss fight where you have to kite them and chip their health away with hit-and-run tactics. Where they find the fun part in that, I have no clue. Ava was neither fun nor boring for me, until I found that it has 2 reskins, together in the frigid outskirts. After that, I started seeing her as one more of the thousands of repeated boss fights in this game as a whole. Again, can anyone tell me who had the bright idea of making you fight the same boss 2 times in a DLC that only has 3 bosses? The boss fight itself is not even very interesting, it's just a 2v1 because this game loves to complicate things by adding more shit to the fights instead of, you know, working on a solid boss presentation, a jaw-dropping moveset, intimidating yet spine-chilling boss track. They completely skipped the Miyazaki school of how to do boss for dummies. Invaders are one of the highlights here because if you are new to the Soulsborne formula, you can even think these NPCs are humans because of the way they behave. This dude runs off towards other area enemy NPCs like any little bitch would when near death, you know, to get a few extra bodyguards and put you at a disadvantage. This dude looks like a friend, but actually he will backstab you the moment he has the chance, and he uses the level to his advantage, running away and putting himself in tight spots so it is hard for you to roll out of his attacks. This other bloke waits for you to open the chest to kill you with his insta-kill backstab. That is a huge improvement in AI behavior at that time, and also in comparison with the base game where invaders would only spawn and go after you, and maybe strike a little emote after killing you to get your blood boiling. Some areas are miserable considering the amount of enemies, which makes you just want to run past everything, and these include some of this DLC boss runbacks. The runback to Grave Robber, Varg and Sarah is the most forgiven, and that is a huge statement. Numerous enemies, close quarters, statues that petrify you every square meter. Even try to run past everything is dangerous because you can end up like this. This room in Broom Tower, full of those melee charged soldiers, another one upstairs throwing bombs, this huge dude that is already a bit of a challenge by himself, since hugging his rear is not always the best choice because he drops fire by his back or his side with almost each attack he does. I get it that we were supposed to use the explosive barrel guys against them, but it is so hard to pull that off. I spent minutes doing laps around the room with 2 of these little fuckers and not one of them exploded. So I just had to spend some of the most tedious moments of my life sniping things from afar with a bow. Iron Passage makes no sense because you are 100% bound to use some Estus going through it if you are an average player, because the amount of shit that the game throws at you is ludicrous. Projectiles, melee guys, the big fiery dude at the end to prevent you from going through the fog gate, because that is a thing in this game for some reason. If you are a melee undead, you can't even reach the spellcasters because they are in some unreachable elevation. If you take the other path to kill them, you'll be basically running past everything because the door that leads to them is timed. If you start fighting, it will shut before you can get past it. Running past the common way is even harder because the casters have a passive effect that as long as they are alive, you are slowed down while near them. Everything in the zone is made to crush your spirit and make you waste as much time as they can to pad the playing time. Since Smelter Demon is no pinwheel, the fight can get rough. You'll die maybe a few times and have to go through that death trial more times than your sanity can stand. Frigid Outskirts has also been bashed by the community infinite times because, well, that's Dark Souls 2 at its finest. A big, useless zone with a hazard that does not allow you to see 2 meters past your manhood most of the time. The reindeer are relentless, big poised creatures that are only staggered if you hit them with a nuclear weapon. In Dark Souls 2 fashion, they will chase you until the end of the world. They have quite a big health pool, can shoot projectiles, sometimes 2 will spawn at the same time, which is mostly impossible for a guy using a build that cannot stagger them. Best part is, if you stop to fight almost everything on the way, your weapons will surely break. I happened to break both of my plus 10 weapons during that whole ordeal, and then, during the boss fight, I had to switch to a plus 7 weapon that was nowhere near as effective as the others. Also, all of this struggle to fight an uninteresting reskinned 2v1. After seeing these examples, it is not hard to see that the actual difficulty does not come from the bosses themselves, but from what you have to do to reach them, which is pathetic, in my opinion. If you dare fight everything going to Seer alone, you'll most likely die during the boss fight due to your lack of Estus. It is no coincidence that after I started running past all of Alone Knights, the Alone Lieutenants and the Fire Lizards, I managed to kill Seer alone in my second try. The soundtrack was an incredible upgrade coming from the original game. Like I mentioned in my review of the base game, the actual good bosses of this DLC are made 10 times better because Sakuraba and Kitamura, the composers of Dark Souls 2 soundtrack, had an epiphany in their dreams, where a humongous dragon flew around the arena making it a cinematic experience, where a decent boss fight comes from a well-crafted 1v1 against a legendary noble swordsman or a banished knight that found a new purpose in life instead of revenge, or even better, where you descend straight to fucking hell with your mates to fight against the hordes of corrupted friends of theirs, to see them sacrificing themselves to shut the portals and turn the tides of the fight, only to witness a badass SOB come out of an even bigger Doom portal that shakes the whole arena, cueing in the track at the exact moment he comes out and starts sprinting towards you. All of this followed by their magnificent tracks really made this DLC worth it, in spite of all that crap it has. Areas and enemy variety were a mixed bag, so I'll cheat a bit and call this one a neutral feature. Starting with the zones, they all have a theme going on. Shulva is a cave level all the way through, moist, mold. The palette of colors is pretty much brown, green, and different shades of these two colors, kind of reminiscent of that time in PS2 where all games were brown, 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 and more shades of brown. Resident Evil 4. Broom Tower has fire and ash all over the place, of course, and obviously Ilium Lois is all about that juicy snow. They all lack something, in my opinion. Where Ilium Lois is eye candy, it is one big-ass linear level, and on top of that, you have to backtrack after Alsana removes the storm, which doesn't add a whole lot to the level, in my opinion. Just going through the same zones in general once again to find the 3 missing knights. Good thing is, it is not mandatory since you can just jump into the fight with one knight to back you up, although it is Ninja Gaiden levels of difficulty to overcome it without finding the others. Broom Tower's design is much more intricate. I got vibes of Resident Evil 1's Spencer mentioned from that one, like go there, find that key, go back, open that door, use the next key to open another door. You get the gist of it. But the aesthetics of that level really bore me. The negative thing about creating DLCs based on a single element is that it can get repetitive pretty fast. 4 to 5 hours of consecutive fire, ash, and smoke can tire you as fast as 4 to 5 hours of ice, snow, and wind. I must say, there are some incredible views throughout all 3 DLCs, and that make you feel like a tiny little ant once you see how big everything around you is. Then, the enemies. Have you realized that the armored soldiers are pretty much the same enemy across all 3 DLCs, just re-skinned to fit the theme, either fiery ash or freezing snow or sunken mud? You might think, oh man, you're a hater. I didn't see you complaining about the repeated Yarnamites or the citizens who turned into beasts in Bloodborne's The Old Hunters DLC. I mean, has Bloodborne got 3 DLCs? Disgracefully, no. So they only pulled this move once, and that was only for 1/3 of the DLC. And there are multiple reasons why it worked. First, it makes sense to put them there, because we are back in Yharnam, so who do you expect to be there? Moreover, the beasts were there to be hunting prey for the corrupted hunters, which caused some dynamic free-for-all fights between your character, the blood-drunk hunters, and the beasts. Moreover, Yharnamites have personality built into their characters. The way they scream, "Away! Away! Beast! Oh, foul beast! It's all your fault! This is a damned curse!" It's freaking awesome! They are not there just as a complement of the environment, you know, like, the level is icy, so we need frozen soldiers for the entirety of the run. Now, I would like to pay respect to the amount of attention to detail here. If you roll in the snow, your armor will be covered in snow. The wind does not allow you to light torches in Ilium Lois until Alsana removes it. If you kill Sir alone without getting hit, he will do a seppuku, or I don't know how it's intended to be pronounced, is it seppuku? Which is basically commit suicide by stabbing himself with his own katana in order to die with honor and avoid the shame of being defeated without landing a single blow. If you come to Fume Knight's fight wearing Velstad's armor, he will jump straight into phase 2 out of pure anger since he was banished from Dranglake after being defeated by Velstad. You can see those huge amphibian creatures at the bottom of Shulva from the first bonfire, creating a sense of continuity to the level, you know, instead of making you think that the only active and loaded areas in the game are the ones at your vicinity. All of these open chests inside of the temple in Shulva have most likely been opened by Grave Robber, Sarah, and Varg, since that is what they do. Loot. That would explain how Sarah and Grave Robber have armor and weapons combinations that make no sense. For instance, Sarah is wearing a Lucatiel mask with leather armor and gloves, wielding a stalk and a great bow. The combination makes no sense at all, truly representing their nature, looters. Not Varg though, he belongs to the Havel fan club as much as the Abyss Watchers belong to the Artorias D-Riding Union. Just a small nitpick, but the items that belong to the DLC, like the bombs and the healing coins, are pretty useless. I mean, has anyone ever used these? Please leave a comment saying how these things can be game-changing, because as for the coins, this game already has 1 million items that can heal you, and is pretty much generous with the amount of mosses to reduce or nullify toxins/poison. As for the bombs, I don't see how using something that increases strength, dexterity, or faith by 5 for 1 minute can be really useful besides buffing your attack by just a little bit, because you cannot stack them to deal more damage. My character is almost level 200, and my dexterity is already 50, and as some of you might know, from level 50 onwards, the stat increases significantly capped, so how can 5 points make any difference? Well, that wraps up the Dark Souls 2 DLC's review. As I've said 1,500 times, and here comes the 1,501st, Dark Souls 2 is a roller coaster where the top feels really nice, but the bottom feels like stepping on dog diarrhea while barefoot. And in my opinion, the saving grace of this DLC are 4 boss fights and their soundtracks, some weapons and a few features that skyrockets the attention to detail, and just because of these things, I don't prefer that these DLCs ceased to exist. Leave a comment if you think otherwise. I love to have these debates with you, comrades. It is one of my favorite hobbies ever since I started YouTube. See you in the next one. Bye.